is an extraordinary spectacular of the world's most lethal weaponry. And let me tell you, for the uninitiated, it's loud, menacing, and quite overwhelming. For this military coalition, it's also intended to send a clear message to its would-be adversaries. Mess with us at your peril. If anyone ever needed a close-up view of why the world should avoid going to war, this has surely got to be it. We're in Hawaii, where it's usually paradise. But for the last few weeks, it's been a fury of firepower that's as terrifying as it is impressive. This is the biggest military exercise in history.
It is. You have 29 nations with all common interests that are here operating together so that we are better able to deter conflict or aggression and ready to counter that if required. And by having that ability to respond, potential adversaries can say, you know what, there are consequences for actions, and today's not the day.
But tomorrow could be. And that's what drives Vice Admiral John Wade, who's running this huge operation.
The world, but especially the Indo-Pacific, it's a dangerous and complex area. There's challenges with China, with Russia, with North Korea.
What we're about to see is how the US and its allies will fight back if war breaks out in the Pacific. This region is under enormous threat, especially from China. It's growing increasingly aggressive, antagonising its neighbours by sending warships and aircraft where they're not allowed. Does the thought of potential conflict keep you awake at night?
It does. It does because everything is connected here. 50% of the world's population, 50% of the world's natural resources, 80% of global trade. And that's why we have our military, not only the United States, but our allies and partners here working together, all with common interests to preserve the integrity of this region.
An hour off the coast of Hawaii, we land on the USS Carl Vinson. It's one of 11 nuclear-powered supercarriers in America's arsenal.
It is an adventure every day. As you can imagine, a ship like this with 5,000 sailors, it's a 24-hour operation.
What's it like to live, work and sleep on board?
Busy. We have about 80 aircraft in total.
Captain Matthew Thomas is the commanding officer of the Vinson. He started out flying a Hawkeye E-2, like this one, but never guessed he'd end up in charge of an entire aircraft carrier. Your heart belongs in there.
My heart belongs in there, but my mind and body and everything are here on the ship. When I was a kid, back in the 80s, I saw Top Gun, and that's what got me interested in the Navy and wanting to be a pilot.
This is one of the biggest warships in the world. You can't help but feel like a tiny drop in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The runway isn't just short, it's also constantly moving. So the thought of taking off and landing here is as frightening as it is exhilarating.
It's kind of like you're dressing up to be like a superhero. It's kind of fun to like put on all the gear, but the second the gloves go on and the mask comes down, it's like it's all business from there, just kind of focusing on what you're about to go do.
Meet Lieutenant Hunter Cultus. Call sign, Sugar Lips.
The call signs are a little bit sacred in the military, specifically the Navy itself. So I was raised in South Texas, so I kind of had that southern politeness to me. So a lot of people thought I was very, very smooth when I talked to them, and I was talking my way into or out of situations. So I kind of got the call sign Sugar Lips at that point.
So everybody would think you have the coolest job in the world, but what you do is incredibly serious and dangerous.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, there's a little bit of fear, I think, in every single flight that you do, and I think it's a healthy amount of fear to kind of keep you safe.
Yeah, thanks for getting out here.
Even after 38 years of service, you still can't wipe the smile off Admiral Lisa Franchetti's face.
You like flying the helicopter? I absolutely love it.
The US Chief of Naval Operations and member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff advises the President on important military decisions. But nothing beats the thrill of flying out to sea off the coast of Hawaii. In the White House or on warships? Which one do you prefer?
Oh, my favorite place is to be on a warship. I love being on this warship right now. And, I grew up as a ship driver, and I really enjoy being at sea. So it's been a real pleasure to be out here and get a chance to visit with all the sailors and experience a little bit of what I used to do for a living.
Today, as part of the RIMPAC operation, we're helicopter hopping across warships from South Korea, Japan, and New Zealand. And the 4-star Admiral's greatest weapon is her charm. She's reminding each country why America is their firmest friend, as China continues to muscle its way into the Pacific.
These are very turbulent times. The freedom of the seas is under threat.
You said today on the ships in the announcements that the Indo-Pacific is under threat. What do you mean?
Well, I think if you look around all of our oceans right now, the rules-based international order that has really supported global prosperity for about the last 3/4 of a century is under threat everywhere we look. About 70% of the world is oceans, about 80% of the people in the world live near a coast, and 90% of trade goes across those oceans. And we need to make sure that they are free and open for everyone to use.
There's something spectacular about flying so low and so close to the sea. But beyond the buzz, this is an extremely important mission for the US Navy's top brass. What are your fears for this region?
My most important fear is that for some reason we may lose some of our partners and our partnerships. And I think the biggest message is allies and partners matter, and we all matter to each other.
Allies matter, of course, but so do your adversaries. What do you want them to take away from this exercise?
Well, I think that's what the adversaries see. We have allies and partners. Adversaries don't.
The strong bond between the US and its allies is just as clear and intimidating back on land.
The things you're going to hear are heavy effective fire, which means the enemy has a high volume of fire.
On the eastern coast of Oahu, US Marines are pushing their partners from Indonesia, Mexico, Ecuador, and Tonga to their absolute limits.
This scenario right here would be they're closing on an enemy position.
It's fast and frantic, but most confronting is the sound of gunfire at such close range. And that's exactly how Major Sam Otavio wants it to feel for the shooters too.
Design everything as close to the battlefield as you can. A little bit of a language barrier, which is realistic. So when we're in the Pacific and we're fighting with these partners, like that language barrier is going to be very real. It's going to be something we have to work through. So it's awesome that we get to train out here with them like this.
There's no doubt these war games are an impressive, at times terrifying display of what the US and its allies can do. But China is having none of it. They say, far from protecting peace and security, this show of force only puts our region at greater risk.
Let's go. Hit it again. Hit it again.
I think it's a kind of art of performance, yeah?
Zhibo is a retired Chinese senior colonel. From Beijing, he's paying close attention to the enormous military might on display in Hawaii. Does the thought of coming up against that force worry you?
No, I don't think so, because why should we be worried? We should not be worried at all. If it is about China and the potential threat in the real situation, I don't believe there are many countries that would wholeheartedly follow the United States.
Do you really believe that many of America's allies would actually side with China if a war was to break out?
I believe that those countries, those allies of the United States that would be involved in a war would be less than a handful. I think that would be the worst fear, to see the two largest economies fighting against each other.
Well, it's clear that the adversaries are watching. There's many nations that are responding to our actions here.
As the commander of the RIMPAC exercise, Vice Admiral John Wade doesn't shy away from the point of the entire operation.
To preserve peace and stability and to deter conflict, you need to do that through strength and got to practice. I call it sets and reps, working together.
Sets and reps. I like it. What is it?
Sets and reps are just building muscle memory, and then to be able to, over time, with increasing complexity, work together so that we can be better prepared to deter aggression or to counter it if required.
China's critics. Our ambition is not secret.
All right, great to see you all. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Keeping the peace in the Pacific could depend on who Americans elect as their next president in 4 months' time.
Thank you again. Have a good exercise.
Admiral Lisa Franchetti knows that person will turn to her for advice on how to prevent another global conflict. Come November, you might have a new commander-in-chief. Regardless of who wins, will America's bond with the Pacific be as strong?
I am confident that our relationships and the strategic importance of this region will never change. You can never take any relationship with a partner for granted. And so we always need to be here, we always need to be exercising, and we always need to be listening to our partners.
Its military presence all over the Pacific, especially in the hotly disputed South China Sea near Taiwan. China is putting its warships in places it's not welcome.
Well, this is certainly not true. We are sailing everywhere because the Chinese Navy is becoming a global navy, and right now we need to get familiarized with all the uncharted waters.
Many would say that your ships are getting far too close to places like Taiwan.
Well, Taiwan is part of China, so therefore it's not a problem. Yeah, we do not consider Taiwan as a territorial sea or whatever.
Does it concern you, the threat that's building in the Indo-Pacific when it comes to China?
I think any threat that's building on a military basis is a concern for us, and China is not the only player in the Indo-Pacific environment. You know, Australia has a very competent defence force, but I hope that we don't have to employ it in a way that we're practicing here at RIMPAC.
Our Defence Force has sent a guided missile destroyer, the HMAS Sydney, along with 320 troops to Hawaii. But many believe that's not enough, given it makes up less than 2% of the 25,000 people from around the world who are participating. It's created some concern that Australia might be underprepared if a conflict was to break out.
I think that would not be the case if you looked at the entire program of events that the ADF was involved in over this current 12-month period. We have key leadership positions filled and a strong contingent of key personnel throughout all the headquarters.
Are you surprised by Australia's lack of presence at this year's RIMPAC, given the threat on our doorstep?
Well, a few hundred people, a ship, and an airplane is very capable.
Vice Admiral John Wade is in charge of the entire RIMPAC exercise, headquartered at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii.
It really grounds me. It grounds me because it reminds me of the consequences of conflict.
Why, after so many years of service, are you still so passionate about what you do?
When I was a young junior officer, I had my first child. He was trying to figure out what I did, and I said, Daddy helps me. And I really believe that. It is reinforced for me why what I do is so important, to work with others with a common goal of ensuring peace and stability throughout the vital Indo-Pacific region.
Back on the USS Carl Vinson, it's also front of mind for Lieutenant Hunter Coulter. Like so many practicing at RIMPAC, for him, there's a strange irony. They spend their life training to unleash the most lethal weapons on Earth, in the hope they never have to.
What does the word is that can't handle medium-sized missions on their own?
In this documentary, we'll hear from people who know NATO from the inside.
We cannot guarantee that we can protect Munich, Frankfurt, Berlin. Can't do it.
Founded in the aftermath of the Second World War, NATO achieved the unimaginable. Over time, former enemies became partners.
I think this is fascinating. There were also German officers who were part of NATO's command structure who had been fighting against the Americans and the British in the Second World War.
75 years after its founding, NATO's importance is now greater than it has been since the Cold War. Around the world, there's an increasing focus on military might.
And it's not just Russia, but also China and the Middle East. I think Saudi Arabia has tripled its ground forces since 2010.
And what about NATO?
We took a holiday from reality, and now we're dealing with the consequences of that.
This of a direct attack, a few kilometers, where crucial political decisions are made. In the event of an attack on a NATO
solution. So if somebody says no, then we expect from that nation that says no, an alternative yes.
Oh, praise to Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Hashem, Bakudash. So, as we was looking at in the video, basically, these nations gearing up, and having these war practices, because, they know that big day is coming, okay, and we living in those times, where the Most High, Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh Shai, is finna come back and judge these nations, okay. So let's go to Ezekiel chapter 39, 39 and 1. It says, "Therefore the Son of Man, prophesy against Gog, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Yahweh, Hashem, Yahushua. Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief priest of Meshech and Tubal." Okay, and that's Russia. And verse 2 says, "And I will turn thee back and leave but the sixth part of thee, and will cause thee to come up from the north parts, and will bring thee upon the mountains of Israel. And I will smite thy bow out of thy left hand, and will cause thy arrows to fall out of thy right hand. Thou shalt fall upon the mountains of Israel, thou and thy bands." And the band's talking about, those armies. "And the people that is with thee, I will give thee into the ravenous birds of every sort, and to the beasts of the field to be devoured. Thou shalt fall upon the open field, for I have spoken it, said the Lord Yahweh, Hashem Yahushua. And I will send a fire on Magog, and among them that dwell carelessly in the isles. And they shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh, Hashem Yahushua. So will I make my holy mountain known in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let them pollute my holy name anymore. And the heathen shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, the Holy One of Israel." See that? So the Most High, He's going to judge these nations, you know, and the Most High, according to the signs that he told us about in Matthew, I think it's 24 chapter, you know, that, we was going to be hearing rumors of wars and things like that, you know. So, as I was saying earlier about, these nations are gearing up and practicing for their day of judgment, you know, and just paying attention to the signs that's going on in the earth, we know that time is coming soon, so I wanted to share that with you guys today. I'll be back with the next one. Peace.